Paul was accused of taking a Gentile into the temple while he was at Jerusalem. Of course, this wasn't true, but it caused such an uproar that he had to be taken into custody by the Romans. They had no idea what was going on. He asked permission to address the crowd, and he spoke to them, and it gave him an opportunity to give his testimony, to talk about Jesus. The next day, he had to go before the Jewish council. They were trying to figure out what was going on. And once again, a huge uproar. They're going to tear Paul to pieces. And so the chief captain, he takes Paul once again, puts him in custody. And that night, the Bible tells us that Jesus came and spoke to Paul. Acts chapter 23, verse 11, the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, "Be of good cheer, Paul. For as thou hast testified of me at Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome." And so Jesus is letting him know this is not the end. This is, even though there's this huge uproar and all these tumult and these crowds and all of this mess, we're not done, and you're going on to Rome. I need you to preach at Rome. And so while he's locked up, a group of men come to the chief priests and they say, "We've bound ourselves with an oath that we won't eat or drink until Paul is dead." And so they come up with a plan to ask the chief captain to bring Paul before the council the next day because they want to ask him some more questions. On the way, they plan on jumping the group and killing Paul. Well, God has somebody in place to make sure that this doesn't happen. And we haven't even met him yet. It says in verse 16, "And when Paul's sister's son heard of their lying in wait, he went and entered into the castle and told Paul." Well, we didn't even know that Paul had a sister, much less that his nephew was there in Jerusalem. And isn't it amazing? As I read that, every time I do, it just strikes me. God has a plan. God has this person, Paul's nephew, in place, at the right place, to catch wind of this plot so that he can then go and do something about it. So he goes and tells Paul, and Paul asks one of the centurions to take him to the chief captain, and he does, and he tells him, "Hey, here's what they're going to do. They're going to ask you to bring him tomorrow, and their plan is to kill him." And so because of Paul's nephew's story, his testimony that he brings, the chief captain that very night sends a huge military escort and sends Paul out of town to Caesarea, saving his life, thwarting the plot. Isn't that amazing? I just want to encourage you, live today knowing that Jesus has a plan. You may not know all the particulars, but he has a plan. He has people in place that you didn't even think of. Who would have thought that Paul's nephew would be in the right place at the right time to catch wind of this plot? And we'd never dreamed that up. It's this incredible plot twist. But you know what? It's not a twist for Jesus. It's part of the plan. He knows exactly what's going on. He's got a plan, and he's way smarter than anybody else. And so you can trust him. The promise that he brings to Paul while he's there is to comfort him. And that's what he says. Be of good cheer. Don't get down. I know it's a big uproar here in Jerusalem and things aren't looking the way you might want for them to. But I've got a plan. It was time for Paul to leave Jerusalem, time for him to begin his journey on to Rome. And that's how he carried it out. So you can trust Jesus. And you can trust that he has a plan. You can trust that he has the right people in the right places at the right times. And he may not let you in on all of it, but you'll see what he's doing. God bless you. Have a great day.